you've given me permission to ask you about your personal story as well, because that obviously plays a role in how you develop professionally for anybody. So I appreciate your willingness to and openness to talk about the kind of personal side of your life as well. Have you experienced failure in your personal life, which has then also impacted your professional journey? And what personal situation would you say had the biggest impact on how you developed in leadership? And maybe if I can add one more point, have there been any situations that perhaps started out on the face of it, as a bad situation, that then turned into something good as a result of how it progressed?
Well, I suppose there's two or three things I think of, but perhaps one of the things that made the very biggest difference to me right at the beginning of stepping into the world of work. So I was about 17. I got fed up with being at school. I'd done my exams. I'd got my university entrance. And so I said to the school, look, fed up with being at school. Why can't I just leave early and go and get a job? So I went and got a job. And they put me in a aircraft hangar, which had a nuclear reactor in one corner and 2 particle accelerators in the rest of the hangar. And they sat me in a room with one of these very early computers, proper computer, and said, write some software to analyze what happens from the particle accelerator. So I thought, that's great. What actually happened was, around Christmas, so shortly after Christmas, I was picked up off the streets of Oxford because I'd literally gone mad. The police thought maybe I'd taken some illegal substances, but I hadn't. So I was locked into a psychiatric hospital. I was given massive doses of drugs, and 3 months later, I'd come out, gone back to work, and everybody thought I could go to university and I'd be fine. I just had an episode, But what actually happened was, although I got through the first year of university, I then had another episode, and it took me 3 years to recover from that other episode. And I think in the context in which I lived, this was a massive failure. A rising star who got an award to go to Cambridge University and in a highly desirable college, had just crashed and burned. And the real prospect at one point in that following 3 years was that I'd never leave hospital, and I'd become what we used to call in the hospital dribblers, people who've had so much long-term psychiatric care and drug intervention that they shuffle around and dribble. It's a very real possibility. So in some ways, that was a personal cataclysmic failure. And I think in some ways it was worse then, because we didn't in those days have the celebrities coming out and talking about their ADHD or their depression or whatever. It's no longer it was not at all socially acceptable to admit that you'd had a catastrophic mental breakdown. And even worse was to admit you'd had electric consultative therapy, because isn't that what they did to the creation of Frankenstein? It's not a great advert for the rest of your life. So it was meant to be this sort of hidden secret. And I think the most important thing it taught me was that it was an illusion for me to believe that I could solve every problem in my life by working harder or working smarter. Because when I did that, I moved myself closer and closer to another catastrophic breakdown. And so what did that failure do? It got me to realize that I might be clever, I might be determined, I might be hardworking, but actually that's not going to solve all the problems in my life. And I don't always remember that. It's very easy to get back into this mindset that everything can be solved by working smarter and harder and longer. You know, everything can be sorted by that. And actually, for me personally, and I think generally for people, that's a recipe for disaster.
What is the alternative that you took away as that might solve this? If it's not working harder and smarter or longer, did you find something that was an alternative to that?
Well, I think just at one level, recognizing acceptance. So, you know, although I might have thought I was a superhuman Spock character, I'm not. So just accept my own limitations. Be able to share those limitations with the people around me, and also not to necessarily feel I need to buy into somebody else's definition of success that then drives me to work harder, smarter, and longer than actually is physically, mentally, and spiritually good for me.
And you're not the only one, I suppose, in that space. I mean, there's you see regularly folks on LinkedIn who post, "Sorry, I've been away for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months," and share about their real burnout, especially as you get into leadership. I suppose that is a real prospect, isn't it?
But it's interesting the language you use, isn't it? The acceptable thing is to say burnout. You use the language burnout because in some ways that says, I've been working so hard that, and been so fiery that I've consumed all of my resources. If they said, I've had a catastrophic mental breakdown and I've been locked up in a psychiatric hospital for 3 months, and 9 months later, I'm just about finding a way to live in this world, I'm not sure that'd be such an acceptable story to put on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Do you think it ever will?
Who knows? I mean, I don't put it out on LinkedIn as part of my LinkedIn profile, but I have been prepared to put some articles out there that talk about this story because actually, I think it's important to make it acceptable, but also at some very fundamental level, don't really care what other people think about me. I just accept, who I am, and then other people have to deal with that. And if they don't want to, well, at least there's somebody in my life who does.
Yeah.